Hi. So today we are going to talk about motivation at workplace, and we are not going to talk about theories. We will talk about some of the very important connecting points which we tend to overlook, and they are not the main concepts, but somehow they make the whole process of motivating your employees or your team a very effective one. So, first, if you're a manager or you own a business, then knowing about motivational concepts and the processes is very important, because once you know how to make people work well and give their best at work, half of your job is done. So let's talk about performance management system. Every step involved in this system is either directly or indirectly linked to learning concepts or motivation concepts. Now, let's simplify the process. Let's talk about the performance management system as four steps. The first step is how you choose the criteria, or what criteria you choose to measure a specific job. Like what task you take into account that these are important tasks to be completed before we can say that the person performed well or not. So these are the tasks, we will measure them. The second step is how you measure it, what tools you use to measure it, and what is the result. The third is what kind of reward or punishment you have decided to compensate an employee or team member based on the assessment. The fourth step is what feedback we give to them. Now, all those 4 points are directly or indirectly have the capability to motivate or demotivate any employee. So, what I ask, and reward and punishments are most popular ones in this whole process. So whenever I ask in my class, the simplest answer I get is there are some ways to reward or punish people which are more popular, which are more effective, but that is not the case. For example, one answer I get is employee of the month is a great way to reward people, and it's very popular, and rightly so, because when we have less or limited resources and you want everybody to give their best, so if you use this technique, I don't even call it reward, but if you use this, then yes, everybody tries to give their best, because there is just one spot and they want it. If they want it, they will fight for it by giving their best performance. And sometimes it works best when the performance or any effort which are required by a particular person for a particular job are not heavily dependent on other people, then it works. It also works when, as a manager, you can see direct connection between the effort person is making and the results we are getting for the overall performance of the unit or organization. If we can see that connection, that person is working and actually getting results independently, then this technique or reward is perfect. But in some cases, when the person's performance is really dependent on co-worker or other people in other departments, or his team member or her team member, then this kind of reward is not appropriate. It actually can backfire and demotivate many of the competent, smart people who are really working hard. Why is that so? So think about, in a scenario, let's say you are a manager in a designer label organization, or an place where you really need to give everybody their best creative ideas, discuss it, and then implement those ideas perfectly. So starting from the idea inception to product launch or finalization of the product, everybody needs support from each of their members, give their best. Only then the result would be most effective one, or the best one. Now, in this case, if we give the reward, if they are highly individualistic reward, then it won't serve the purpose. The many people would be demotivated. So in this case, we have to give reward which are team rewards rather than individual rewards. So anything like best team, or give everybody in the team some vacation packages, things like that. Now, things are not that simple either. I will give you an example where the results are very team based and still we cannot assess the criterias, which are team-based criterias, and the way we assess them is also very crucial. Let's say if you are a manager in a health facility or a clinic. Now in this case, if all the surgeries, let's say, done in a month, they are a very important criteria for overall clinic's performance. However, you cannot keep that criteria important for individual performance. Also, the performance in this case, the surgeon does not alone do all the surgeries. Surgeons, of course, need help of other people. Everybody in their team is required. Very important requirement is for them to give their best to perform an effective and a very successful surgery. Still, we cannot assess this outcome as a team-based outcome. Why? Because they come from a very different qualification background, very different kind of experiences, expertise required here, and also the effort they put for each surgery, the amount and the quality wise is very different. So we cannot have this a team-based outcome. The process would be team based, but we will, as a manager, we will assess individualistic performances and we will give them individual assessment for this, and that is more appropriate because of the differences in the background, experience, qualification, efforts put. And also how you assess that. We cannot just assess the number of surgeries completed by a team or a doctor as their best performance or the criteria for assessing their performance. We cannot, because we have to assess other things, complications in every surgery, uniqueness, what were the expertise required for each surgeries, and all that. Because if you are just giving the judgment based on just the number of surgeries, then the surgeon would be highly demotivated, because maybe the number of surgeries they performed was not much, but they all were very complicated surgeries. So what criteria you use, how you assess them, what reward, punishment, and finally what kind of feedback we gave. In by giving reward, we are giving them feedback that this is important and this is where you should focus on. All these things are important for any performance management system.